Hey everyone, welcome to the Self-Awareness Journey podcast. I'm Melissa Albers.
And I'm JJ Parker. This podcast is for seekers, seekers of happiness and joy, seekers of a centered approach to success in life, seekers of their true, authentic selves.
Get ready for some real talk on everything from anxiety, emotions, and habits to love, compassion, and forgiveness. We know you'll be challenged and enlightened by this conversation. We're so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
Well, Melissa, I just got back from the Boundary Waters.
Your annual trek.
Yep, one of my favorite places to go.
This is where we pivot. It used to be mine. Now in my 50s, I'm just not there with
not
you.
So much. Well,
not so much.
So I had a lot of time to think about things.
No, what?
So just
You're
to paint
getting an earring now, or what?
Yeah, just to paint the picture for everybody who maybe don't know what the Boundary Waters are. So the Boundary Waters is a protected area between the Minnesota and Canada border, and there's like thousands of lakes, and these thousands of lakes are connected by like thousands of little hiking trails, which we call portages. So you can like canoe in, carry your stuff and gear to another lake, paddle that lake, and just you kind of keep moving through this whole area. There's no motorized boats. There's no cell phones.
Vehicles of any sort.
Yep. The airspace over the Boundary Waters is restricted, so planes can't fly over it. I mean, it's very, very wilderness.
Serene.
Yeah.
Yes, very serene.
So between the lakes, when you're portaging, you have to carry all your gear and
yes, you do.
your canoe and everything. So sometimes it's multiple trips. Sometimes those portages are like a mile.
Sometimes they suck.
Most of the time they suck. They're uphill, they're downhill, they're rocky. These are not like paved paths. These are like
bush
little,
crashing.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to whack through the plants. We had one that was super muddy. Which,
oh gosh, I've done this.
Just like walking in mud. It's awesome.
You're so descriptive. I feel like I went on this trip, which
it's awesome.
Good, because now it's just pushed it off for another year for me.
I had my, 45-ish pound canoe over my head and, probably a 40-pound pack. And I was trudging through the mud up a hill.
I bet it was more than 40 pounds. I'm sure it was more than 40
was.
pounds. Yeah, for sure.
And I was just thinking like every step was hard. And I was just thinking, what is my limit here? Like the whole time I'm thinking like, should I put this canoe down? Well, like, can I make it farther? Like, it was a very physically strenuous, like, so I was like, well, first, as a dumb man, I'm like, I can't put this canoe down. It will be like a reflection on my like manliness.
Okay. Oh boy. Did I ever tell you my last Boundary Waters story?
No, yeah, because you've been up there a few times.
Okay, well, it's not my last, but it's my favorite. It's my favorite Boundary Water story because to me, this unfolds what you just said, but in such a beautiful visual. So my husband is a Boundary Waters expert.
Yeah, he's like the super outdoorsman.
Yeah, and he was a guide up there for years and years. So he took big parties, little parties, all over the Boundary Waters, and absolutely prided himself on knowing every portage, every lake, all the shortcuts, all the things. And so he decided that he was going to take me up there along with our 110-pound golden retriever, Ben. And we were going to have a beautiful Boundary Waters experience. So we left late from the cities because I was working. We got up there, we got to the parking lot, and it was already dark. And it was raining. And for anybody who's going to go to the Boundary Waters, probably don't wear shorts when you're going to be portaging a lot. The idea is to have your arms and legs covered because you are going to be going through sharp things. Okay? So I had shorts on, and so did he, because we were in such a rush to get up north, and it was super hot. And so the rain hits to sort of break the weather, but it is now pitch dark and raining. So he decides, you know what? We're going to take a shortcut portage to get to our opportunities.
Like not on the map kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And he's got the Kevlar canoe. So a Kevlar canoe weighs 32 pounds, very lightweight. And the oars that he's carrying are very light, 1.5 pounds each. So we've got the gear. We're pretty cool. We got all the gear, right? He's got the huge pack on his back, and he's loaded me with what can only be described as a baby pack. He's trying to make the experience, where I'll return. This is the whole goal for him, is to make this great Boundary Waters experience. All right, so in the dark, raining, I'm in shorts, and we start bush crashing. Okay, the dog's trying to figure out how to follow us. It is thick, thick, thick. And we are bush crashing for at least an hour. Okay, now it's like late. I don't know what time it is. Let's say 10:30 or 11, because it was summer, so, and it was dark. And my husband's personality is very much like yours. Very calm, seldom loses his cool. Like, I don't remember, I could probably count on 2 hands the number of times he's really lost his cool in 10 years. Well, this one was the first. He got so mad because he realized we were lost.
Oh, no.
We were lost. And he lifted that Kevlar canoe off of his shoulders, and he threw it like a caber to the Scots.
What?
He threw this thing like a dart, like a dart headed towards a dartboard, and absolutely lost his cool.
Nah.
Okay. Then he was really upset with himself that he lost his cool. So we gathered all of our things, and it turns out we weren't that far off where he was trying. But in the dark pouring rain, you can't tell.
Geez, I can't imagine.
Yeah. And plus, I was all bloody. My legs were all bloody from, I don't know, whatever, you name it. Every vine that has thorns was taking its turn on that evening. Anyway, so we finally got this 2-man pup tent set up. Okay. Now, it's starting to thunder, and our dog is scared of thunder and lightning. He's 110 pounds. So he's in the 2-man tent with us.
Oh, my goodness.
It is pouring rain. The bimini of the tent is just, the tent's flapping around. And it's pitch dark, and all of a sudden I hear his voice from, I'd like to say the other side of the tent. So it's probably 4 inches from my ear.
Right.
That was the other side of the tent. And he said, "Please tell me you'll come back." I did not say a word. I did not say a word. I woke up and my head was in a puddle on the side of the tent.
I can't imagine that anything was flat. You're probably like on sticks and rocks.
Yeah, and it was wet. Everything was wet because we put the tent up in the pouring rain. Okay, there was a puddle that went around the perimeter of the inside of the tent. And so our golden retriever had wedged himself between the two of us. He had his head on my pillow, and my head was off the pillow
in the puddle.
Near the puddle. Yes. Yes. Boundary Waters will test you.
It will test you.
In every possible way. And then it might be the most absolutely extraordinary, beautiful place you've ever seen in your entire life.
Yep.
And you don't know what you're going to get.
Yep. It's, exactly. You're like rolling the dice every time.
You are. You're just rolling the dice.
So
but it will test you. It tests you.
Oh, absolutely. So that's interesting. Like I was actually thinking about, as I was doing like that physical activity, I'm like, there's a point where I physically won't be able to haul this much stuff.
Yes.
But then I was kind of wondering, like, is it a physical limit or is it a mental limit? Like, do I mentally give up before I physically give up? And I think
interesting.
I think almost always I mentally give up before I physically give up. Yeah. I can be physically very fatigued and being like, oh, that's it. I can't even go anymore. Yeah. But is that actually true? So I was really trying to play with that this week. Like, can I carry all this gear and as my legs are kind of burning and can I push through that, mentally push through that physical limit? I think you've talked about that when you ran like a marathon.
Yeah. It's the same. It is a very interesting play on thinking, feeling, and then the physical part of it, the emotions, the thoughts, and the physical part of it. And they have to be in tandem with each other for you to continue going. And yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's such a fascinating thing to think about because I think you're right. Most of the time, your body's going to do what your head tells it to, right? I mean, that's kind of what you're saying. But occasionally, your head may not know what the hell's going on. I mean, maybe. I
Like,
don't
what do you
know.
mean not going on? Like,
Well, if you're pushing your body to the point of failure,
mhm,
you know, and you have the brain of an athlete that says, turn off anything that's a no,
mhm,
that's where injuries happen, right?
mm,
That's where serious injury can happen.
yeah. Yeah,
So
oh,
it is a
yeah,
play on.
that is a fine line, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. I like your story, like, so Mitch hit a definitely hit a mental limit.
Still to this moment, I picture, I mean, that was 30 years ago. Still to this moment, I can picture him. And he did swear the F word as the thing went flying into the bushes. Yeah. Yeah. That was
So
good
that,
times.
like, that maybe he is physically exhausted from trying to get in there and carrying all that stuff. But then,
And he was
and
mentally
then
so
emotionally, like,
exhausted.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
we're lost.
I've screwed this up.
Yep.
She's never going to come back. I love this experience so much, and now
Yeah.
she's going to hate it. And by the way, we have gone back many, many times since. So I say
All is
that as
not
though
lost for him.
I'm not really a city folk, but in turn, I'm not in a place anymore in my life where I do want to push the physical limits right to the edge anymore. But I do think there's something to explore in here about what are we teaching ourselves? What can we learn from this experience of putting ourselves in these physical places? I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, and maybe even like mentally and emotionally. I'm not saying like we should emotionally get ourselves to the breaking point all the time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like, where are those edges? Like years ago,
Yeah.
I was kind of into car racing for a while.
Oh my God. Were you really?
Oh yeah.
I never know. God.
Oh really?
Oh my God. Glad I didn't know you then. I would have spent all the time worrying.
Yeah, we would go up to the racetrack with our cars. We even actually had like a little race car for a while.
Did you really?
Well, yes, because we're going to try to enter this. So a big popular race is called the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and it's like it's in France. It's like a 24-hour race. Well, in Wisconsin, they have the 24 Hours of Lemons, and so you can buy you can enter a car that's worth less than $2,000 and race it for 24 hours if you can even mechanically keep it running for that long. So, anyway.
Oh my gosh.
But when I first went up to the track, we went, we took class, like there was instructors, you drove with instructors first. And the very first thing they do is they put the instructor drives and a couple of the students are passengers in a car and they like go do the track.
Got it.
Except the cars they have are like old police cars and beaters. Like I rode in this like old SUV. The whole thing's like
scary.
rickety and
my God.
And
no, thank you. I'm out.
Yeah, and we're like, is this like can this even drive? And everyone piles in, and these instructors throw the car around this racetrack. I mean, it's like this SUV, it's a big old SUV. The thing's like rolling over almost on two wheels. Like, it was so scary.
Were you wearing helmets?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think they kind of half-assedly welded a roll cage into it. But but the thing that taught me was like how you don't know the limit. Like, you don't know the limit of your car, right? You've never driven your car anywhere close to its limit.
Yeah.
We saw some cars that looked really janky, and those things probably went around the track faster than I could get my car around the track just because of the skill of the driver.
Yeah. Sure. Of course.
Right.
Oh, sure.
But in the kind of that race experience, you really got to see like what is the very edge of the performance of your car and you.
Yeah. And you.
So and same with this kind of boundary waters thing. I was experimenting with that. Like, what is my limit here, and which one's going to go first, and how does that feel and come up? Because I didn't like push it to the point where I like collapsed on the ground in a pile of gear.
Did you throw your canoe?
I did not even throw the canoe.
See, you weren't even close. You had so much further you could have gone. You didn't stretch your edge.
But I think like just like your athlete idea, it's like I was thinking the mental part goes first almost all the time. Unless you've been really, really trained and you've really, really practiced like getting to that edge, the mental one goes first all the time.
I actually can really relate to this in something I hadn't even thought of until just now. But, I'm a huge yogi, right? So I've been practicing yoga for years and years and years and years. And then during COVID, I didn't go because nobody could go. Yep. And I'm somebody who really enjoys doing it in a class instead of by myself, because I just don't feel like the practice is even remotely close when I'm just by myself. So I've gotten back and then stopped and back and stopped and back and stopped for 2 years or 2.5 years now. And just recently I started again, which is the whole practice of yoga is just begin again. But I noticed something very different this time, because usually, at least when I was younger and I would do yoga, it was really all about the physicality of yoga. Like, I mean, it's tough. You're using your own body weight with all of, to do all the resistance and everything, your mobility, handstands, all the things, that's the physical part of yoga, and all very real and very rewarding, and also incredibly difficult to learn and master. So I've done a lot of that stuff. And then after this break, coming back, I actually had this kind of conversation with myself, like, what is this one going to be like? What am I going to play? What's my edge going to be this time? Do I need an edge this time? So I have been playing with this idea of how much physicality versus how much mind-body connection, spirit connection, am I focused on for this season of my practice. And it is very interesting because now at this stage of the game, I'm not sure that I want to master the physicality again. Like, is it that important to me to be doing one-handed handstands while I'm drinking green tea?
I was going to say, I've seen pictures of you upside down.
I know. I mean, is that a big deal? Like, do I need to do that? And there were many times, though, where that was so important to me. And I'm not minimizing that at all. For me, it was very important then. And I felt so much satisfaction in having that experience, pushing my physical limit
that's interesting.
All the time.
The goal was to find the limit and push the edge with yoga.
Every practice.
Yeah.
Every practice.
Yep. Yeah, go 100%. We do
that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or more.
Yeah, right. And it was very rewarding, but I don't really know if I need that anymore. It's kind of like, Mitch also did a lot of Boundary Waters canoe racing. There were at the time, I don't know if they still do, but canoe marathons. And those are
I've literally
difficult.
Never heard of that. That was really a thing?
Yeah, out of Ely. Yep. Yeah, and that was a tandem race, and it was very, very difficult. Very difficult.
I would think so.
Because Mitch has done multiple marathons and done all kinds of stuff, pushing himself. And we have had this conversation about, because I remember one time they came in first, Mitch with his partner Litchfield. So they called him Mitch and Litch. They came in first, and Mitch's head was bleeding because when they were running with the canoe on the top of his head, it was banging on his head, and he didn't care. He didn't care. He just kept going, and his whole face was great. I thought he was going to die. He pulled in, and then on purpose, they swamped the canoe and just went into the water. I thought he died. I was, once again, at the end of a race with him, furious. Because he pushed the limit, and he would explain that he just would turn his brain off.
Yeah. So do you think there's some people that are just more like predisposed to this, finding the edge? Like they really like to push the limit, and then some people are just like, yeah, that's not interesting to me. I'm sure too. Do you think it has to do with your level of competition? Maybe. That might be. I always say I'm not overly competitive, and then you always correct me on that.
Oh, you're so competitive.
Like,
God.
I mean, competition. It's competition with myself, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the physical breaking point is really an interesting thing to explore, because I think there are certain people who crave that.
Yep. So, right. So the thing I really liked was, I think I like using the physical challenge as a way to help me get better at pushing the limit on like my mental ability.
Yeah.
I
like that.
That's the part I really like about it. I don't necessarily like exercise or do these things because of the physicalness of it. I like it because of the mental game of it. Can I
Yeah.
get through that next barrier? Can I make the next step? Can I keep
Right.
going when
Right.
challenged?
Right. I like that. And I would say I'm the same way. I'm the same way. And I think maybe being a little more thoughtful about it in the conversation, I guess that has shifted over the years. Like,
Mm.
or maybe even not over the years. Maybe it has nothing to do with
Well,
age.
yeah. Well, so I was gonna say, like, using the physical thing to sharpen the mental side, or help
Mm-hmm.
develop more resilience
Yeah.
mentally.
Yeah.
I don't think you can, I think you can do that without having to do the mental thing or to do the physical thing. You can probably challenge yourself in other mental ways to also develop more mental resiliency,
Yes.
right?
I would
So
agree with
study new
you.
things, learn new things, um, you know, something that, again, these physical challenges don't have to be the only way.
No, but you know what else I was just reflecting on? I think having being in your physical body, being comfortable in your physical body is extremely important.
Mm.
Um, my coach just sent me a text the other day that said, you are a soul in a meat suit
Well,
on the planet Earth. And I was like, oh, look, that's
a weird text.
terrible. But the point is like, we're all having this experience out of our, inside of our physical
Mm.
bodies. And so having a relationship with our physical bodies
Mm-hmm.
is very, very important. And being comfortable in them is
Mm.
important. So whether you weigh 300 pounds and you make an effort to walk around the block,
Mm-hmm.
and you feel good about that and it's giving you something back, I think that's really
Mm-hmm.
important. I mean, I think this connection between the physical and the mental and finding those edges and
Mm-hmm.
playing with that is incredibly important.
Yeah.
And I think it looks different for everyone. It doesn't have to look like extreme sports. It doesn't have to look like,
Mm-hmm.
you haven't exercised since COVID and now you want to get back at it. Well, maybe it is just simply showing up on your yoga mat for 30 minutes and doing stretching.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And that feels good in your physical body, and that actually releases some things for you mentally.
Yeah. I like what you're saying there, because even like my experience doing yoga is,
Yeah.
when you have like more, like, I don't know what you call it, like physical or body awareness, it
Mm-hmm.
really helps with your self-awareness. Because I don't, like you've always said,
100%.
it's like the mind-body connection, and you can't really sense, like you can't really sense what you're feeling if you don't have a
Right.
good, like, kind of
Right.
connection with your body, because that's where the feeling comes from most of the time. So
Exactly.
developing those two things together, yeah, I really like that idea.
Yeah, it's a great journey, and I think there's a number of things that we can do regardless of our age or what our
Mm-hmm.
physical shape is. But I think honestly, just recognizing that, and even if you were really, really strong at something before, and you're still interested in it, but you're not very strong at it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you used to be a runner. Maybe you used to go to the gym and you got an injury. All these things. Can you still experience the thing that you love physically without expecting yourself to be what you were when you were at your peak performance? And can you do that without giving up?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Can you do that
Well,
without the mental haranguing?
yeah. Can you get your ego out of the way to just be like, this is
Exactly.
where I am now, and that's totally fine.
Yeah. Can you compare yourself to your future self instead of your old self?
Yeah. When in tennis, especially around the club, like the club level tennis, you see a lot of, there's the rating system, the USTA rating system, which kind of like allows you to like play other people at your same like level or ability. Well, you see all sorts of older folks who used to be at a high level, and they just try to cling on to being at that level, even though their performance has declined, which again is totally fine. Like, guys will come back like after like getting a hip replacement and expect to be playing back at their like 4 or 5 level. Like, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, just be happy you're walking.
Yeah. Well,
but then they hang on to it, and then it's not real great experience, because then they're just getting whooped around on the court.
Right.
And what they should do is just downgrade there.
Well,
their rating.
How do you think they feel when they leave the court? Like, that's the thing. It's like,
Yeah.
they're trying to push towards this standard, and they're like, I'm going to be the first person that's different, right? I'm going to be the first 70-year-old playing like a 23-year-old. And what does that do?
Yeah.
What does that do to the physical experience? And what does that do to the mind experience? Like, how do you talk to yourself during that? And which thing is, and because I think that honestly, when you're talking about this kind of connection, this leads to mind patterns that expand well outside of any physical stuff. If you have a mindset that you put yourself up for something physically that you're not able to attach to or make happen, if you set yourself with physical goals that are not possible for you continuously, and then you never hit them, how does that feel with your esteem?
Oh, yeah,
so
pretty
then when
bad.
you go to set up, and when you go to set up other mental goals, what do you think about that? Like, there's not a separation. It's the same thing. Well, I couldn't do it there. What makes me think I could do it here?
Oh yeah, like emotionally, you can't. You can't really separate the two. Like,
no.
Like when you get down to the emotional level, where your amygdala is like making these decisions,
right?
It doesn't know if it's a mental or a physical challenge. It just says, "I have a habit of failing, and then that's what's going to happen again here." Yeah. It's an interesting thing to think about, and just, in the journey of, because you've been going to the Boundary Waters now for a number of years, right? And it is a hugely physical experience. Wait a second. Were you about to say, and soon you won't be able to carry as much as you do?
No. Actually, I was going to say the reverse. What I was going to tell you is Mitch still goes up there with a bunch of guys, and one of them is 85 years old.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And he still carries a pack.
Yep.
He still carries his oar. He still does the things. He just walks a little slower.
Yeah.
His pack isn't as heavy.
Yep.
And he loves it just as much as he did when he was 40.
Yep.
Again, that's that mindset.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing to explore.
For sure. All right. Well, I'm not going to do anything super physical this week because I'm kind of wrecked and tired.
Well, good.
But,
that's awesome. Because I'm wrecked and tired.
But now you've inspired me. Next year, I'm going to carry even more and walk even farther.
God.
Maybe I'll get with Mitch and try to find some of those secret passages between the lakes.
Don't do it. Don't do it in the dark, in the rain, in shorts. Don't do it.
Did you enjoy this episode? Please go to your favorite podcast platform to subscribe, rate, and leave a review so others can discover it as well.
Growing self-awareness is a lifelong journey, and there's always further to go. And it's better when we're all in it together. Please think of someone you know who could benefit from hearing today's conversation and share this episode with them. We can't thank you enough for listening. Until next time, happy exploring, seekers.